Well, hello.
Hello.
Hello, Walter. How are you?
Good. Let's switch off the recording till Ernie comes.
Hello, everybody. Good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Oh, good evening.
Good evening. We are on Peites 89, Bava Basra. It said, Malcolm Shanagu Lamed Bagasso. So when you have a balance beam, you have to put the food in either small sort of cups or large cups. The Mishnah said it depends on the minute. If you use small, small. If you use big, big. And the Gemara gives us simonim for the next sugyas. Ein ma'aynim ben godshin ba'argadomin v'litra shloisha v'eser nefesh mishkolos b'machik ovel osasa lo yaser. Ton rabon. Ein mochki b'mokum shegodshim. So when you are measuring out flour or any dry good, so there's either a heaping measure, which is you allow the flour to raise above the container, or you smooth it. So moichkim is smoothing it and Goitshim is allowing it to go above. So in a place where you do Gedisha, you're not allowed to moichek. Ve'ein Goitshim b'makom shemoichin, Talmud Lomer, Eifa Shleima. It's a pasuk. The Eifa, the measurement in that area has to be the way you always do it. Uminayin she'im omar. Harini moichek b'makom shegoitshim. Listen, in this locale, they have a heat measure, but I'm going to smooth it. But v'lifchos lo min adamim, I'm going to give you a discount. Or the opposite. Harini goitish b'makom shemoichin. I'm going to do a heaping measure where normally we smooth it. But you have to pay more. Neither are you allowed to do that. You have to follow the custom in that community. So we said machriin is where you start the balance scale lower on the side of the meat because we're doing it to the benefit of the buyer. So you don't do even in a place where you do the lowering, and vice versa. Ein machrim b'makom shma'aynin. Talmud lomer even shlema. U'minayin she'imam arenim ma'ayin b'makom shma'achrin v'lachos v'adamim. I'll do it, but I'll reduce the price. Or v'arenim machrim b'makom shma'aynim l'hoisef lo, you pay more. She'ein shoymin lo Talmud lomer even shlema v'tzedek. You're not allowed to do it. Rav Yomi Surah. Lo yelecha beveischa. You're not allowed to have a faulty measure in your house. If you do, mata mishum eifa ve'eifa. You're going to become poor yourself because mishum even ve'even. You became poor because you had faulty measures. Aval even shlema v'tzedek yelach. But if you have proper weights, you will have money. You'll be blessed with material goods if you have proper weights. It says, Lo yelacha, melamed shemamidin agardimim. You know what? The community appoints inspectors, lamidos. Beis Din sends out shluchim to the markets to make sure that the weights are beseder. But regarding what price is being set for various goods, that we don't have inspectors.
But by the way, they still have inspectors. We have an inspection every year. They come and check every balance in our office.
You see a seal. There's a certification seal on balance weights. Absolutely.
Yeah, they come.
Okay. So the bein nasiya ukmu agardim bein lamidos bein l'sharim. The house of the Nasi, they appointed inspectors, not just for weights and measures, but also for price. Amalei Shmuel Karna. Karna was the Talmud of Shmuel. Go and learn. The Brisa says that you appoint inspectors for weights, but not for price.
Maybe Kamala should learn this Gemara. She wants to put inspection on prices.
So if you remember, wage and price control, that was in the 1970 with Nixon.
Yeah, no, I'm saying, but
that was the only time America ever had.
Gemara talks about it now. That they put the Nasi put in charge, but put people watch the prices.
Price, and he didn't allow the market. It wasn't allowed to
allow free market
versus the market. Exactly. Yeah. And Karna was told by Shmuel, the Brisa says we don't have inspectors for market, so go and investigate. So Karna himself found that Mamidin Agardimin Bein Lamidos Bein Lashar, that you do appoint Beis Din on prices, that you can't charge too much. So Shmuel, the Rebbe of Karna, heard So Shmuel asked Karna, what's your name? He said Karna. Karna is the Aramaic for carrot, a horn. So typically Karna be'ene. So Shmuel said a horn should grow out of your eye. Nafkale Karna be'ene. So he had like a cataract or some kind of growth grew out of his eye because he went against the Rebbe. So the Gemara wants to know, Iu Kaman Sober. I mean, who's Karna holding like that he went against his Rebbe? So Kihadam Rami Bar Chama Rav Yitzchak. Ma'midin Agardim Bein Lamidus Bein Lashamim. They're Ramoin, and that's the halacha. We appoint inspectors both for weights and for price. Torah. You go to a grocer and you want a liter of a certain beverage. You use, there was in the market, they had liter measuring beakers. If you ask chatzi litra, shoikaloi chatzi litra. There was also standard a half liter measurement. If he wanted revia litra, shoikaloi revia litra. The grocers also had a quarter of a liter measurement. And that's it. With those three measuring tools, they measured everything out. So the Gemara wants to know, I mean, what's the chiddush here? I mean, that's what it was. The mitakli adhochi, that means we don't make lower measurements less than a quarter of a liter. And if the buyer wants to buy less, we don't listen to him. So for example, if you go to a deli, you can't buy less than a quarter of a pound of meat. They won't sell you an eighth a pound. There's a minimum that they'll sell you. That's basically what's going on here.
But in Switzerland, yes.
Say it again?
In Switzerland, yes.
Oh, you could buy an eighth of a pound of cheese.
People buy 100 grams of minced meat.
Oh, you know, in Israel, I think it's the same thing. It goes to
but they charge you for a quarter of a pound. You know, they give it to you, but they'll charge you.
It's very expensive, but 100 grams. What is it good for? One tooth?
Well, that's a quarter. 454 gram is a pound. So 100 is a quarter of a pound.
Quarter of a pound.
Susie comes by with quarter of a pound of turkey pastrami. That's a fair amount of pastrami.
This is meat for hamburgers. I'm talking.
Okay, I'm just saying 100 gram. I remember in Israel, it's a quarter of a pound. It's a little less than a quarter of a pound, a little less. So that's the minimum weight. The customer comes in and wants to buy 3/4 liter beverage. We don't have a 3/4 liter weight or measurement. You cannot tell him, here, use the quarter, give me 3/4 in the quarter. Because remember, you got to push down on the balance beam. Elashoika litra, they take a weight, that was a liter. Now we're talking about dry weight, not beverage. You take a liter or, 1,000 gram, 1 kilogram weight on one side of the scale. Umeniach revia litra, and then you take a 250 gram weight on the other, and then the meat. And when they even, you've given them 3/4 of a kilogram. That's how they did that. Now, let's say you wanted to buy bulk. You want to buy 10 kilograms. Don't do it 10 times because the moicher is going to lose. Because remember, we said each time he has to push down a half. Doing it 10 times is going to lose out for the seller. No. So you take 10 weights that add up to 10 kilograms, and at one time you do one measurement. Torah. Now, the Gemara is going to give us the structure of the way these balance beams. Now, these balance beams, the Nefesh Maznayim, these are hanging scales. You understand? You could have a scale that rests on the ground, but we're talking about it was hanging. The two things were hanging from the ceiling. That's called Nefesh Maznayim. So it's tluya ba'avir, it's hanging. Shloisha tfachim. It has to be at least 3 tfachim. V'chein govim and aretz shloisha, it has to be above the ground 3 tfachim. The kana, the cups, umasne, and the ropes that are holding it, shalosh nemasar tfachim, 12 tfachim. Now, if it was a scale made out of tzmorim, if it was made out of wool, or if shel zagigin, glass, then tluy ba'aver shnei tfachim, it had to hang at least 2 tfachim. Goyim and art shnei tfachim, above the ground 2 tfachim. The kana umaster shalatisha tfachim, and the cups and the ropes holding it had to be 9 tfachim. Then the shalchenvini, the shalbalabayis, waits for a grocer or a householder, tluya ba'avir tefach, only had to hang at 1 tefach. The goyim and aretz tefach only had to be 1 tefach above the ground. The kono masal shisha tefachim, it was smaller scales. Vishel turtani, this is now like for Walter, for a jeweler, where they were measuring silver and gold. Tluya ba'avir shloisha etzbos, 3 finger breadths. The goyim and aretz shloisha etzbos has to be above the table 3 finger breadths. The kana umaster shalani, and the size of the scales, I don't know.
Annie, by the way, I can tomorrow maybe I'll take a picture. I still have that kind of a balance that we have in our office. Must be 60 years old. I have one of those.
The ones that hang.
No, they hang. They hang on thing, and you got 2 things standing on the side.
Is it accurate? Is it accurate?
If you have the weights to put on the one side, yes, it's accurate, because you have little weights that you put on the one side, which balances it out, and then you put it down. And if it goes down, it goes down. If it goes up, it goes. It's very. I'll take a picture. I'll try, if I remember, I'll take a picture.
Yeah. Now, and Harold and I at UCLA, when we took
Mettler balance,
the Mettler, but you remember it was digital. You remember how?
Yeah, a long time ago. Yeah,
you talk
very
about
sensitive. Very sensitive.
Extremely expensive. They were exquisitely detailed, and you got it. Remember 7.00123 milligrams. Remember?
We have
the 9th decimal. The Mettler.
But we use Mettler scales.
We use Mettler too.
Oh, but they're Mettler.
Yeah,
we chemistry.
We had to find the unknown. We had to find the unknown.
You understand? We had to. They gave you an unknown amount of, let's say, calcium or magnesium, whatever. Remember, we had to make a compound and measure. And by the way it weighed at the end, you have to figure out what they were originally. It was an amazing, amazing thing in that lab course we took. But those were electronic. The machine was this big. It had a glass. Remember, it was a glass that opened it up, and there was a special way how to use it, right? I'm sure Walter has the same thing, for weighing.
They always have glass because the wind and has
the wind. So it had a glass door.
But you have a glass door, but you also the bottom of it had a spirit level. It has a spirit level. A spirit level makes sure that the bottom is balanced as well. Because if the bottom is not balanced, the spirit level is off a little bit, and then your weights will never be correct. That's what happens. So your spirit level has to be correct. We still have it today. You have a spirit level that has to be in the middle.
Okay. So here it is 2,000 years ago, all of this issue with weights, scales. And Archimedes, they do all of this from the Greeks. 300 years, they already worked out the mathematics of a lever and all of that this was known mathematically to them. The mathematics of this was known 300 BC, 200 BC is Euclid and Archimedes were working in Greece, hundreds of years before the Gemara. So a lot of the math had been worked out of all of this. It's not that the ancients were unaware of this. They were aware of this. Of course, the Mettler then used electricity and used modern technology to do it in a more sophisticated way. Okay. Elahach kamaisa demai. Well, what about the big weights that we were describing, the big scales? Rav Papa digrumi. So the bigger weights were blacksmiths who were working with copper and steel, and they're weighing out large mea litros. The Rashbam says 100 kilograms. So those were the bigger ones that were described at the beginning of the Gemara. Rav Mani bar Patish, Kiderech she'amru le'inyan isurin. We said it's usher to have improper weights in your house. Into muscle. And not only that, if the weights hadn't been built according to the codes given here by the Gemara, you were not allowed to use it. And therefore, if somehow they're deficient in the structure we've discussed, into muscle, we know that a kli, unless it's a fully functional kli, is not makabel tumah. And therefore, if there was deficiency in the measurements of these scales, the way the Gemara described, it would also not be makabel tumah. So, my kamashmalan, tanina. We learned it in a baraisa regarding hilchos tumah. Chut, moznaim shel chemri shebalebatim tefach. Means if it's not, we said that the rope has to be a tefach. If it's not, then it's not a kli. Yeah, but kanu master shleitzrachale. But we didn't know what the sizes of these cups and the ropes holding them. So that was the chiddush, because that had not lotzna. Ton rabon. Ein oiskim mishkolos lo shel be'etz. Rashbam says bedil, ashtayn, ishtayn, bedil. Is it lead? Lead is oferis, some kind of metal. Veloshal aver, aver is lead. Veloshal gisterin. Gisterin is like a mixture of metals.
An alloy.
It's a mixture. Veloshal shramine matris. So these deteriorate over time, these metals. So they might weigh something now, but two years from now, they're going to weigh less. So the buyers are going to be losing out. Aval oisahu shel tsunma. Tsunma is some kind of hard stone. Vishal schuchis, glass. So glass was a preferred material used to build these scales. Ton rabbanan. Ein oisin as a machak. Machak is the smoother. We said when you sell flour, there's a heaping measure. So you use some kind of smoother to smooth the top. So that could not be shel dalas, made out of some kind of gourd. B'neshu kal, it's not heavy enough, and it's not going to smooth properly. And therefore the seller's going to lose out because it's going to leave a heaping measure a little bit. Vice versa, veloshel mateches. This smoother should not be made of metal. It squashes too much. And then the buyer will lose out. Avaloseu shel zayis, olive wood, v'shel egos, almond wood, or walnut wood, shel shikma, sycamore, v'shel eshbroa. He says, buxus lingifolia.
Boxwood.
Buxer, Eshbroa. He says, Buxus linguifolia. Buxer is not, it's normally Buxer is carob. But I don't think this is referring to carob.
This is boxwood, not boxer. They
Buxer.
say boxwood.
Boxwood, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Torabon. Ein oisene samachak tzido echad avet tzido echad kotzer. The smoother should be even. It shouldn't be one side should be thick and the other side thin. Don't do it in one fell swoop. It deepens too much, so it'll be bad for the seller and too good for the buyer. And don't do it too slow. It's going to push down too much, and it's going to be bad for the buyer. Al kulon, on all of these issues, oiloi im oimer, oila im loy oimer. What does this mean? Im oimer, shamilam doramoim. If you say all these things, you're going to teach cheaters what you can do to cheat. So these things should not be announced publicly. However, im loy oimer, if we don't announce it, shami yoimer amoim, ein tamei chachamim bikim b'maisei yadenu. The cheaters and the ganovim are going to think that the Talmidei Chachamim don't know their business, but they do know their business. So that's why you're bad. You're stuck if you're stuck if yes, you're stuck if no. Whether you're silent or not silent, either way, it's bad news. Iboilu. Amra oiloi amra. Did Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai publish this halacha in public or not? Amra Shlomo bar Rav Yitzchak, Amra. He did say it. Umehaikra Amra. Ki yisharim darchei Hashem, v'tzadikim yelchu bam, u'poshim yikashlu bam. The people have to know what to be aware of what the cheaters will do, and don't learn from the cheaters. Torah. It says in pasuk lo tasu avil b'mishpat. Don't be evil when you judge. Bamida, when you measure. Bamishkal, when you weigh. Vamshura. Bamida, zumidas karka. Like George Washington was a surveyor. He measured land. So how do you cheat? When you use a rope during summer, it dries up a little bit through evaporation, and you're going to measure too little. And in la'echad b'masak shamim, the rope is going to be wet. It's going to be a little bit more pullable, and it will lengthen. Now listen to this. B'mishkal, these were the tricks that the unscrupulous sellers would do. They would soak the weights in salt. It would make them less heavy, maybe through the drawing of moisture. And therefore the buyer is going to lose out because he thinks it's a 1 kilogram. It's really 980 because the salt drew weight out of it. What's bamshura? Shelo yartiach. Don't do it quickly. Some of the measuring stuff will get dumped out, and he'll sell less than what's supposed to be weighed. And then there's a kal v'chomer. Uma mishura shehu echad mishloishim v'shisha belug. If you make a mistake by a lug of 136, hikpida left Torah, that's too much. The Torah is going to consider you a cheater. Kal v'chomer lihin v'chatzihin u'shlishit sahin u'v'yisahin. V'log v'chatzilog u'v'yisalog v'chatzitumen. That means all of these measurements going all the way down to the 1/8 of a lug. And the even uchla, which is even less than that. Amir Amarav. You're not allowed to have a faulty weight in your house, even if you don't use it. even though you're going to use it like as a chamber pot in your bedrooms, you don't have to go out to the bathroom. You cannot have any kind of kli that is a faulty measuring device. This is talking about locales where they didn't put a seal on the measuring devices. The government would come and put a seal to say that we've checked this and it's all fine. But in communities where there was a seal from the government, if you don't see this seal, you're not going to weigh with it, a buyer. So you can use weights for other purposes because people are not going to make a mistake. And the prohibition of using one of these kalim for personal use, even in locales that did not have a seal, we only say it's aser ella dulo ma'andasi, where they don't check and measure every day. Like when they opened up the store, somebody came and checked everything. Aval ma'andasi lesson, but in places where everything was checked, then there's no isser to use one of these faulty kalim in your home for other purposes, like as a chamber pot, because anyways, the measurements are going to be, the measuring kalim are going to be measured every day. However, the Gemara says velohi. What we said is not true. It's prohibited to have faulty weights in your house. Because zimna de mikri, ben hashmoshes, it's going to be late Erev Shabbos. Umikri v'shakil, and the buyer's going to want to use it to measure something because he needs the item that he has to buy for Shabbos. You can't have a faulty weight either upwards or downwards. Even if you can use it as a chamber pot for urine. Aval also, you're allowed to have prepared measuring weights for a saw. A saw is like a bushel. Tirkov is half a bushel. Chatzi tirkov is a quarter of a saw. Chatzi tirkov is 1.5 kav. Kav chatzi kav. Verova and a quarter of a kav. The tuman is 1/8 of a kav. The chatzi tuman, which is a 16th of a kav. Okay. We will continue this sugya. Tomorrow we'll learn at 6:00.
Yeah, but I don't know if you'll have enough time.